Good morning, everybody. Trevor the Aviator here, where today I am at Boeing Field out in Seattle, Washington, where today I am going to be visiting the Museum of Flight. And I will say the location of this is one of the most beautiful places that I have ever seen. It is just freaking amazing. But anyways, though, very shortly the museum is going to be opening. And with that, I will be giving you guys a tour of what this museum has to offer. I'm looking very forward to seeing this place, as this is my first time being here. So I will see you guys when I get into the museum. But first, before I entered my way into the museum, I was greeted by this L1049 Lockheed Constellation that is located right outside of the entrance. What a magnificent airplane that this is. Okay, so I have just checked in here to the Museum of Flight, and I will say my first impressions, there is so much to see. So I'm gonna try and give you guys a tour of as much as I can, but I'm not sure if I'll be able to get everything that is here, because what I have seen so far, first impressions, is just spectacular. So I'll get started here with the tour of where I am at right now and show you guys what this place has to offer. The first place that I ended up visiting while I was here at the Museum of Flight was the World War I exhibit, where it featured various aircraft that were used during the course of the First World War. During this time, aircraft were primarily used for gathering important information that was occurring beyond enemy trenches, and with these airplanes, they were able to discover where exactly the enemy was based at and what they were actually doing from high up in the air. In early 1914, the world's first ever fighter plane became invented, which is known as the Caproni CA-20, which was built by the Italians during this time. And this was a single-seat monoplane, and it had a forward-facing machine gun that was located above the propeller, and because of that, the person in the plane would end up using that gun to aim to try and shoot down other enemy aircraft, which it sounds simple compared to what we see today, but this was the beginning into the fighter planes that we begin to see as time continues to go on. After the end of World War I, there was a drastic change in aviation as a whole, and it caused many countries to be able to upgrade newer types of aircraft, in which many changes would be coming in the future years that lied ahead. Okay, so the first place that I ended up seeing here was actually the exhibit where the World War I planes are at, and so far already I am just very, very impressed as to what it is that it has to offer. Now I'm going to go down one floor below and see what it has to offer in the World War II exhibit and see what planes and other things are on display. As World War II began to unfold, there was a major technological leap in aircraft design and even performance that started to occur. Unlike World War I, where there were just smaller planes, in World War II, there were planes that ranged from fighters to others in which they can become heavy bombers, and these aircraft were more technologically advanced and were capable of being way deadlier than the aircraft that we ended up seeing in World War I. Some of these airplanes that have been used in World War II include the P-51 Mustang, which was a pretty crucial aircraft in the war. Another one may include the F-4U Corsair, to others including the P-40 Warhawk, and even by Nazi Germany, the Messerschmitt Bf-109. And there are also many other airplanes that were used during the course of World War II, and these are just the small airplanes. There are also some heavy bombers that were used by both the Americans and the Germans as well as the Japanese, in which there was a lot that ended up happening, and aviation was very crucial and one of the most important factors into being able to secure victory during the course of the war. Luckily, with the competition battle that was occurring in terms of having the better aircraft, the Allies were able to gain victory over the Axis powers to win World War II. And after the end of World War II, a new chapter would begin in aviation where the entirety of the commercial market would end up rising in terms of passenger activity. Okay, so I just got out of the World War I and World War II exhibit, and I will tell you there is a whole lot to see in there. Very impressed with what I have seen so far, and I feel like I have only seen a small portion of what this museum has to offer. So let's go check out and see what more there is to this museum and see what it is we may end up seeing here as the day goes on. The next place that I checked out here at the Museum of Flight was the Great Gallery exhibit, and my first impressions of seeing this is just wow as to just how big this place is. In this area, there are close to 40 aircraft that are on display. Some of these include the DC-3, the SR-71 Blackbird, and many more airplanes that would take a while to explain. As I was touring this area, it felt like that it is one of those places where no matter how many times you would visit, you're always going to see something new with just how much that there was inside of this gallery, as it also featured aircraft from various points in life. And with that, that really amazed me, as we could end up seeing planes from one period to another during the course of the 1900s. While I was exploring around, there was also a number of other exhibits in here as well, such as the theater inside of a Boeing 737, and even an outlook as well of the SR-71 Blackbird, followed by a tower where you can actually overlook airplanes that are going into Boeing Field, which I thought this was just amazing. What a place this was that the gallery had to offer. Well guys, so I am now just getting out of the Great Gallery, and holy moly, there is so much to see in here, and I'm at a loss for words right now. But I noticed there is still a lot more to see in this museum, so I'm gonna go ahead and get some lunch, and then I'm gonna then go and explore some other parts of the museum. But I'm gonna be honest, I'm not sure if I can actually see every exhibit with just how much there is that is here. But we will see what happens. But first I'll get some lunch, and then we'll continue on for the day and see what we can end up seeing that happens. Once I entered the aviation pavilion, I was greeted by a model of the B-29 Super Fortress. For those of you guys who do not know, this was the plane that ended up dropping the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki during World War II. The next thing that I ended up seeing was the Boeing 787 Dreamliner, and I will say in this area here, it was one of those planes that felt absolutely huge. One thing that I found was pretty unique was some of the airline logos that were off to the side, and this actually featured airlines that placed an order on the 787 Dreamliners. Some of these airlines have received them while others have canceled. Then after that, I decided to head inside. And I will say, since I have been on a 787 Dreamliner for a flight in the past, it definitely felt pretty similar as to what I ended up seeing, but it was still pretty cool to see the inside of one of these planes and also some other touches that Boeing decided to put inside of the airplane as well. After I ended up seeing everything inside, I began to head my way out of the 787 Dreamliner to take any last looks as to what the airplane had to offer, and also ended up seeing the tail of the aircraft before I headed my way down the staircase and over onto the NASA Boeing 737. This 737, also known as NASA 515, was actually the first ever 737 that was built and took its first flight on April 6, 1967. This airplane as well was the one that was used for Boeing to create more 737s down the road. As I continued to explore around the aviation pavilion, I realized that there was just so many more airplanes to see in this area alone. And I will say it was a little overwhelming because there was just so much to see. I mean, I absolutely loved everything. But there was just so much to see that I feel like I probably skipped a couple of airplanes because there were so many that were in here. And this is definitely an area that I also feel no matter how many times you go to, you are always going to see something new more than likely in this place. A couple more treasures that this museum has to offer include the first ever Air Force One plane that was used by a US president, to as well the first ever 747 that was ever built. This plane in particular took its first flight on February 9th of 1969, and in December of that year it was certified, and in 1970 it entered service with the airline Pan Am and was the first airplane that was called a jumbo jet, as it was the first ever wide-body airliner to ever fly across the skies. With this, there were so many other airplanes in history involved in this pavilion alone, where I wish I could have had more time to see what there was inside, but because of closing time that was coming, there was still quite a bit of the museum that I did not explore, so I had to reserve some time for that as I head my way over to the next part of the museum. Okay, so I am now just getting out of the aviation pavilion here, and next up I'm gonna show you guys the space gallery that is right next to this aviation pavilion here. Once I entered the Space Gallery exhibit, I was greeted by a gold statue of an astronaut. The first place that I checked out in here was the NASA Space Shuttle trainer, and fun fact, this is 100 feet long as well as 4 stories high. With this, I got to see what it was like from the outside and also see what it was like from the inside as well, which I have seen stuff similar to this when I was at Kennedy Space Center down in Orlando a little bit ago. After I explored that, there was some other things that were scattered around this exhibit, which were all pretty cool to see, and even some activities as well that families could end up doing, as well as a few spacesuits that were scattered around this exhibit. With that, there was quite a few touches that this place had to offer, and overall, I would say I had a pretty pleasant experience being able to see what it is like being in this exhibit, and also took a little break from seeing all the other aviation stuff before I head my way over to the Red Barn. Okay, so I ended up getting out of the Space Gallery exhibit, and I will say I am starting to feel exhausted now after seeing everything. But pretty shortly, though, I'm gonna go into the Red Barn exhibit and see what it is that is in there. Once I entered the Red Barn, I started off things with seeing the traveling exhibit, the Walt Disney Studios and World War II. Unfortunately, in this place, no photography was allowed, so I could not show you guys any of the stuff that was in here. However, what I will say is a brief summary from this is that it did represent some types of propaganda that was used during the course of World War II by both the Allies and the Axis powers as well. As far as the rest of the Red Barn goes, this is a place where it shows a reflection on the early days of aviation, as this was the historic birthplace of the Boeing company. And seeing the stuff that was in here, it really felt like I was going back in time because it showed what aviation was like when it was just getting started back over 100 years ago, and making me be able to realize that it was just fascinating realizing how times have changed from back then to what we see today, and how it all started in a red barn, and today it is now on a global scale, which realizing that was just amazing. By being able to come to a place like this, it really gave me a perspective as to just how rich the Seattle area was in aviation over time. And it really admired me as to just how much has changed from then to what we see today, as well as also being able to see what may end up occurring in the near future. And I am very excited to see where this company may take us as time continues to go on. Okay, so currently now I am outside of the museum entrance, where I am actually doing a little bit of plane spotting at the moment. But about the museum though, and I will say this was a very memorable experience that I have had here. And it is gonna be an unforgettable one for me, that's for sure. And if you guys happen to be here in the Seattle area, I would highly recommend looking at checking this place out if you guys have the chance. And I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and if you guys sticked around to this long, then thank you very much for watching. And if you guys are interested in watching some more of my content, then go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe. Until then, this is Trevor the Aviator from Boeing Museum of Flight. Bye everybody!